Okay, so now you're in New York and you're homeless.
Yeah,
And you're hustling and allegedly involved in strong arm robberies.
sure.
Allegedly. But you're not really making very much money.
I was just spending it all. Yeah, I was
Were
just
you-
surviving.
So you're still taking drugs during this time?
Yeah.
I mean, you have these kind of homeless camps,
Yeah.
right? Like you go to Skid Row in LA.
Mhm.
And, I have people in my family that grew up with drug addicts and everything else like that. And they used to always say that it's not a homeless problem, it's a drug problem. That when you have
Yeah.
these permanent camps, these tents that have been there for years sometimes, it's really people who are addicted to drugs or self-medicating, and this is just an easy way for them to get it, because a lot of times you can get housing and everything else like that, but if you do, then you get drug tested and everything else like that, so people don't want to do that. Is that accurate based on what you've experienced?
Homelessness is a choice.
Hmm.
The choices you made is what got you homeless, and the only reason you're still homeless is because you are continuing to make choices to keep you homeless.
Hmm.
Everybody had the option to not become homeless in the first place. It's very rare that somebody from external circumstances became homeless. It's usually like self-driven bad choices. And even those that came from external things that weren't necessarily or directly their fault, the choices they made were to not do things to prevent that from happening. Like today, right? Like I pay my own bills. So somebody else couldn't make me homeless today. But there's a lot of people that aren't like that. A lot of people are just getting by, couch surfing or whatever it is. Like if they get a 9 to 5, they don't want to show up at 8 and leave at 6. They show up at 9:30 and they leave at 4:30. Right?
Yeah, then they get fired.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between someone who's putting themselves in a position to be made homeless versus not. And then whatever. Then when you become homeless, there are so many ways to stop being homeless.
Yeah. But people don't choose to do them.
They don't choose to do them.
Yeah, like I said, there's all these programs where you could live. They'll give you a small apartment and so forth, but in order to live there for free, you have to take a drug test on a regular basis.
Yeah, they can also get a job.
That too.
I've worked while homeless, and it helped me get out of homelessness. And then I made more bad decisions that led me back to homelessness.
Okay, so you're homeless in New York,
Uh-huh.
and then a friend of yours offers for you to move back to Florida and give you a place to stay.
Yeah, Charlie Hustle.
So now you're back in Florida again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you got clean?
Actually, I got clean while homeless in New York. That's how it started. And for like a short period, I was clean there, homeless still, and then went to New York. And that's where I like gained recovery. That's like where I gained like life. I wasn't just dry anymore. I wasn't just like existing, not using. I was living, not using.
Right, you went to AA and everything else like that. Did that really help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, lifesaver.
Okay, so you're living in Florida, you've gotten clean, and you get a job painting houses.
Right. For a guy named Sean Dalton. I still talk to all these guys, man. They saved my life.
Right, and you're painting rehab centers.
Yeah.
And that actually gave you the idea to start your own rehab centers.
There was a bunch of steps in between, but yeah, basically, so Charlie Hustle's landlord was Sean Dalton. So Sean came to the house one time when I was there with Charlie just to check on the house, and he just asked Charlie like, "Yo, is your boy over there down to like paint a house for me? I'll give him $100." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." So Charlie connected me and Sean, and I went to work for him. By coincidence, he had a contract doing construction and whatever on these rehab facilities. They're actually sober living homes owned by the rehab. Is exactly what it was. And from there, when we finished that contract, there was no more work until Sean got like another job, But he was chilling. He made so much. And the guys from that center came to me and were like, "Yo, we know you're out of work. We know you're sober now and trying to improve your life. Do you want to work with us in-house?" And the short version is I did, and I kept getting raises and promotions. And I saved up enough pennies, and I gained enough knowledge to open my own.
Right, that actually grew to a whole bunch of rehab centers.
Yeah.
Like, how many did you own at one point?
It's a little bit of a trick question because you can take like partial contracts with a lot of treatment centers. And sometimes they'll have it for a day, and they're like, "Oh, we found someone that'll do it cheap, you're out." So it's a little bit of a trick question.
So you don't actually own the rehab centers
There was
outright?
a few that I owned. I own no I don't qualify to own a license.
Aha.
So I can only be an owner through operating agreements. It's the only way. I can't own a license.
Okay. Because you also own 300 pharmacies? Not really?
Yeah, so I did, but that's another thing from the no jump interview that we were talking about before we started today. Like I could have said that same fact in a much more digestible sentence, right? Me and my two partners owned a company, and that company owned a piece of a 300 pharmacy network.
Aha. Okay.
That's like the reality.
You didn't own them outright. You guys had...
No. I don't qualify to
Aha.
to own those licenses either. Yeah,
Right. You said that the rehab business is predatory.
super predatory.
Explain.
There's good guys and there's bad guys, and there's no way to police the difference from the outside. So it becomes a really fine area. The reason that I call it predatory is you're making money directly off the backs of addiction and mental illness, right? The sicker the patient is, the worse they are, the more times they relapse and all that, the more you can just keep billing their insurance or charging the family or whatever it is. It started with a great concept. There's people that are homeless or on drugs or have mental illness, and we want to save their lives. So the concept of the industry started great. Once the money like really started rolling in, everybody was like, where's the line between being morally good and morally bad because you're making money? It became really hard to navigate which people were on what line. Everyone wanted to lie. Nobody wanted some people were just like, yo, I'm a scumbag and I just want to make money off human beings, right? I just want a patient broker. There's people that are like that. But most people would lie about it. And it'd be really hard to get to the truth. So as a treatment center owner, it's really hard sometimes to figure it out. So mostly we just kept the smaller centers in different regions so we can do our own thing and not have to worry about dealing with people that might be shady.
Okay. But you had two business partners, right?
Yeah,
And at one point, you guys had a falling out
sure,
and you bought them out.
sure. Yeah,
And then you grew the business
correct,
and then you sold the business.
correct.
How much did you sell it for?
I don't want to say.
Okay. Millions? Okay. So now you've sold your business.
Yeah,
You got a few dollars in the bank.
yeah. I had more money at that point than I ever had in my life.
You moved to LA.
Correct.
What was that whole experience like? Now you're in LA, you've got money. Do you have a job at all, or you're just
Nah.
living off your, the money you've made?
Yeah, so when I bought my two partners out, one was murdered and the other just kind of went, not into hiding, but he took the money I gave him and just sort of lived a peaceful life, like in the distance. No one really heard of him. No one knows where he went exactly. So the one that was murdered was my best friend. And so my best friend was murdered. I sold my companies. My long-term girlfriend and I, like, we split up. So I really had nothing going on in Florida. And I was like, let me just shake it up. Let me do something new. And I lived in like all the major cities on the East Coast. I was like, let me try something new. Let me try LA. And I had this idea for a new business. And I still think it would be great. And the perfect place to beta test it was LA because I needed two polar extremes. I needed a place of high, incredible income and incredibly low income to beta test my concept. And I figured LA County like had the most extremes and the closest area. So, and I just wanted to try LA. Like I never lived in LA. So I came out to LA, and in the beginning, I just lived off that money. Like, bro, it would have been, I don't know, I could have lived a really long time, like, without ever having to make a dollar, just chilling. And I did. I got this penthouse downtown, and, got a new car, and just was chilling. And then COVID hit. And between, me splitting up with my girl, Rizzo being murdered, and whatever, a new city, I was, like, super lonely. And I only knew one person in LA. Everything was shut down, so I couldn't meet people. I couldn't go outside. I couldn't, like, do anything. And I was just alone. And it was, like, kind of sad. It was like I had all the money in the world. I'd worked so many years for it. I'd accomplished all these things. And then everybody in my life was gone. Whether dead or broken up. And just, I'm alone in a city I've never been in. And whatever. And the one guy I knew here, we had known each other through the treatment business. And he hit me up one day and he goes, yo, there's this underground card room in LA that decided to operate through COVID. Do you want to come play? And I'm like, bro, I'll do anything to get out of the crib. And so I went with him. It was actually a really small stakes game. But it was like my first taste of LA social life. It was the first time I got to meet people and like see action, and like everybody in that room acted like COVID didn't exist, and they're like telling me about LA, and the women all there were wearing lingerie or less, and just like, I don't drink or anything even at that, at that point, but the liquor was flowing, the drugs were going, like everyone was having a good time. I was sober, but everyone was having a good time, and that was the first time I felt happy to be in LA. And then I told my boy, I was like, yo, take me to another one. He took me to the same game. So they open up twice a week, that game. So he took me to I think it was like Tuesdays and Thursdays or something, or Tuesday and Friday, I forget. And I went to the second one, I had a good time. And I started talking to all the players, and the players recognized me from the first game. They go, yo, I heard about this other spot opening up on Wednesdays. You want to play that game? And I go, yeah. And then I started playing 6 days a week at all these underground card rooms around LA. And like, that's where my life started to build.
Okay. So you're playing these underground gambling spots.
Yeah.
Right? These aren't actual casinos.
Correct.
Any worry about getting robbed or cheated or anything else like that? Because it's completely unregulated, right?
Correct.
Someone could bust in, rob everyone.
Yeah, correct. So there were a bunch of games that got knocked over, which means robbed. But the thing with most of these games is there are lines of credit to try to avoid that. There's two reasons they avoid that. One, if there's no cash, it's not a crime. And two, if there's no cash, there's nothing to rob. So mostly that's what it was. And to be honest, all of us basically were strapped anyway. And there's armed security. One of my homies was security. He got shot and killed outside of a game, trying to protect the game from getting robbed.
Damn.
Yeah, here in LA. Actually, not even like too long ago. It was in the news, but for the most part, you'd be one of 20 guns if you walked in there anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but your friend gets killed.
Yeah.
So
people die every day,
this thing actually happens. It goes down like that.
Yeah, but people die every day in all types of environments,
Yeah, but some are more dangerous than others. I'm just saying.
Sure.
An illegal card operation, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars that a person might think is in that room.
That's the thing. So somebody might think there's money in those rooms, but there's really not.
Okay. Have you yourself ever had a problem, in these underground rooms?
A problem how?
Any kind of problem. Someone trying to rob you, the house trying to rip you off, another player trying to get over.
Okay, yeah. So never like has somebody like pressed me in a game. Like that's never happened. It's also not really that type of environment, It's like a neutral gang territory, right? Like it's one place that everybody goes, no matter like who you're with or what you're there. Bro, there's games where we played with like gang leaders and cops at the same table. It's like that's one spot. There's no phones. Nobody talks about it.
Oh, so you can't even have your phone or anything.
All the girls that work the games sign NDAs and get their phones taken at the door.
Huh.
The players keep the phones, but everybody knows like nobody wants, like everybody knows, we don't want to be filmed while we film someone
so no
else.
one's pulling off going on Instagram Live or anything else like that. Right, okay.
No, but then also like as time went on and more people through the COVID time were willing to run games, the higher stakes games came. And the higher stakes you left that like grimy, dirty stuff behind. Like eventually I got to a point where playing on like there's a private island like off Miami that I played poker at. They run a game there pretty consistently. There's games in Puerto Rico, there's games in Manhattan. Like these games at high levels are all like celebrities, billionaires, politicians, and there's none of that happening. Like there's no grime, there's no crime, there's no like thuggery about it. Like they're super classy. They have like actresses as the cocktail waitresses.
Actual actresses that you've seen in movies.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Almost every girl that I met for my first like 3 years in LA, I met at the poker games. They're the most beautiful women in the world. Like it's unbelievable. And they're just there in lingerie or less, like providing services and being friendly,
Right. I'm sure they're getting a lot of tips in the process.
It's a lot of money flowing to everybody.
Money flowing, exactly.